Abarth proves that small EVs needn't be boring with this full battery hot hatch, the 500e. We're promised it will drive, handle and even sound like the company's previous rorty little petrol models, but that the heart and soul here is pure Abarth.
It's difficult to think of a brand less suited to the EV generation than Abarth. The company's Fiat-based sports models are all about loud, noisy, profligate performance and nimble handling. Everything you can't usually have in most EVs. Except, possibly, this one, the Abarth 500e. Some parts of the brand's very vocal community of owners have been less than enthusiastic about the prospect of this full battery model, but the company says the 500e has been developed in the name of performance in the very best traditions of founder Carlo Abarth, who founded the marque back in 1949. Ultimately, this model will replace the marque's 595 and 695 petrol hot hatch models, and not before time, given that they've been on sale in various guises since 2009. But is this 500e really a true Abarth? Is it even a true hot hatch? Developing one of those for the EV generation is certainly fraught with problems. The more powerful electric motor you'd want in an electrically powered car of this kind would be a painful battery drain. And the bigger battery you'd need to correct that would anchor any shopping rocket down unacceptably through the turns, even if there was somewhere to put it, which, as you can see, there isn't in the dinky little design this Abarth borrows wholesale from its all-electric Fiat 500 donor model. That car offers just 117 horsepower when paired with the 42 kilowatt-hour battery that Abarth had to use here. Not really enough to interest an enthusiast. After a bit of head-scratching, though, the marque's engineers managed to make the electric drivetrain more efficient by removing some of the losses in the system, thereby liberating an extra 35 horsepower and elevating performance to the realms of class acceptability, though the power output being offered here is some way off what you'd get from obvious EV fast hatch rivals like the Mini Cooper Electric SE and the MG4 X-Power. This Abarth, though, aims to counter with a more emotive soundtrack, a meaner look and dinky, chuckable handling. Will it all be enough, though, to justify the asking prices here? Well, you'll need the industry's most comprehensive review, the Car and Driving Road Test, to find out. Sound is what sells an Abarth and always has. So, an inordinate amount of time in the development of this car, over 6,000 hours, was spent creating an artificial sound tailored to please likely customers. Let's have a listen. It's not what you expect to hear from an EV, is it? And we think it suits the car, but might tire of it quickly and wish it wasn't accompanied by the rather unnecessary initial guitar strum. At least, though, it gives this hot 500e some of the character that some of its rivals lack. What matters, though, is how this Abarth drives. EVs generally sprint away from rest, but in almost every other respect are usually anything but fun to drive. So, can this one be different? Well, wait for the green ready message to appear on the instrument screen. Press the black D drive button for the single speed transmission, and you'll be all set to find out. On the move, the sound generator's early burbling soundtrack settles down into the hum of an angry wasp. To try and faithfully reproduce the engine note of one of its rorty petrol power plants, the brand's installed a set of speakers beneath the car, and the speakers are linked to the throttle, so that as you accelerate, the sound builds just as it would in a 595 or 695. The problem, though, is that because there aren't the gear changes you'd get punctuating a combustion engine soundtrack, the car seems like it's constantly stuck in gear or revving far too high. So after a while, you might be minded to turn the sound actuator off and go instead for a subtler stealth hot hatch vibe. Whether or not you think the oral sound effects here are gimmicky, you can't argue with the performance facts here. Namely that the 500e is an all-round faster car than the 595 petrol model it effectively replaces, which doesn't initially seem very likely given that it's much heavier and has 20 brake horsepower less in total output. Set against that, though, is the fact that the full 152 brake horsepower output developed here is, of course, immediately available, rather than being hampered by the turbo lag you'd get in the petrol versions. That instant torque, 243 newton meters of it, propels the car from rest to 62 miles an hour in just 7 seconds flat. Even more significant is the 25 to 37 mile an hour overtaking increment time of just 1.5 seconds, a full second faster than the 595. As for the Grand Prix starts you may have in mind, which you can time via a centre screen drag race feature, well, they're certainly fast, helped by wider wheels and tyres, and this model's change of fixed gear ratio over its Fiat EV cousin from 9.6 to 10.2, which gives a more urgent balance of acceleration and top speed. Consequently, 12 to 25 miles an hour is dispatched in a second flat. That's 50% faster than its fastest combustion model, the 695, despite this EV model's extra 300 kilos of weight. Overall, Abarth says that compared to the 695, this car is a second faster around the development circuit it most frequently uses, Bellocchio, Fiat's test track just outside of Milan. Though you'd think that a faster flowing lap facility, lap times might be considerably hampered by this EV's rather restricted 96 mile an hour top speed. Stay on twistier tarmac though, and this would certainly be a quicker car over a lap than a 695, helped by a better 57 to 43% weight distribution, 60mm of extra track width, and the way this battery-powered model produces more grip from its Bridgestone Potenza Sport tyres. Abarth hopes that all of this will distract potential customers away from the fact that this 500e has quite a lot less power than its most obvious rival, the Mini Cooper Electric, which in top electric SE form puts out 215 horsepower. That advantage is only enough to make that BMW model 0.3 of a second quicker to 62 miles an hour though, and in a Mini you won't have quite as much fun getting there. To make sure of that, this Abarth offers a choice of 3 drive modes, emotively labelled Turismo, Scorpion Street and Scorpion Track, which each alter brake regen strength and power output. You'll need the latter 2 Scorpion settings to liberate full power, with the track mode turning off the brake regeneration system. In the Turismo, it's all much more sensible, with power output capped at just 134 horsepower and brake regen retardation off throttle ramped up, which actually we quite liked when pressing on, because it helps you replicate that feeling of a trailing throttle into a sharp corner. To really enjoy driving like that, you need sharp steering responses, which certainly aren't provided by the helm of this model's Fiat 500e donor car. Abarth's addressed that issue with a faster rack that weights up nicely in Scorpion Track mode. Ideally, we'd have liked the wheel itself to be a fraction smaller in diameter to suit the kind of B-road chuckability this little Italian pocket rocket champions, but in all the drive settings it gives you a good feel of how much grip there is beneath you and whether the front will stick. On bumpier back routes though, you might initially be slightly unnerved by the way the stiffly sprung suspension setup's lack of travel throws the car about a bit over nastier bumps. Thanks to its modified valving, the damping's not as teeth-grindingly brittle as we'd expected it might be though, and you could use this Abarth as a daily urban commuter without too many comfort compromises, which isn't really the case with a combustion-engined Abarth. What else? Well, braking feel, aided by discs all round, is excellent. The rear disc brakes are fitted with copper-free pads for optimum stopping power. In practice, it's all good. There's no shuddering or weird regen pedal feedback. Highway driving, of course, isn't this Abarth model's forte. With the sound actuator off, you'll notice at cruising speeds that refinement's some way off the standards of a larger EV, but of course you'd expect that from one of this size. The The standard lane keeping assist system is the closest this car gets to providing any sort of proactive driving aid, but that's fine given its remit for enthusiasts. Will those people recognise this as a proper Abarth? Well, the jury's still out on that one. Maybe somewhere in its development future it will be. But for the time being though, we've got a car that really adds a welcome spark to city car motoring. You might be surprised just how different this Abarth 500e is from its Fiat 500 EV donor model, even under the skin where it has a wheelbase 24mm longer and a track 60mm wider. As you'd expect, the stuff you can see looks more aggressive too. Lights, diffuser, skirts and bumpers are all of course Abarth specific. The brand's head of design, Francois Leboine, likens the finished effect to a tennis ball, an explosion of bright bouncing colour that gets to its destination quickly and with a minimum of effort. A particularly vivid illustration given the acid green paint finish we have here. We're looking today at the fixed top variant, but there's also a cabrio version offered as well with a folding fabric sunroof style top. Either way, here you're getting a car that's a little wider and a little longer than the continuing combustion-powered small Abarth models. In profile, once you've clocked the marque's latest electrified Scorpion logo prominently displayed behind the door panel, the first thing you'll probably notice is these big wheels featuring branded hubcaps. There are 17-inch rims on the standard model or 18-inch diamond-cut titanium grey alloys on this Turismo variant, the one most customers will probably want. Other sporty details include matte grey mirror caps and special side skirts. Otherwise, it's just as with an ordinary Fiat 500e, with flush-fitting door handles, poked-out indicator lights above the front wings, a 500 badge below the rear window, and a charging flap on the driver's side. Here, as you can see, we've got the fixed-top model with the alternative cabrio version. As with combustion-powered open-topped Abarths, there's no proper convertible top, just what amounts to a fabric folding sunroof, though it electrically retracts right back to give a decent wind-in-the-hair feel. At the front, above the circular indicators, there are these headlamp eyebrows, fashioned from black trim here, replacing the daytime running light strips used above the headlights in the equivalent Fiat. In this Abarth, these lamps will always be of the full LED variety. There's also this redesigned bumper, 30mm longer than the standard Fiat one, which apes the form of a scorpion's claws and houses this cool white lower front air dam, on which 4 streamlined prongs replicate the arachnid's legs. As with the Fiat version of this model, this grated lower air intake means a traditional grille above is unnecessary. The panel instead fashioned with Abarth lettering in place of the usual central 500 badge. There are full LED tail lamps at the rear, plus a neat roof spoiler, but the reversing lamps and rear fog light have been positioned low down, surrounded by this white diffuser panel, where they'll be susceptible to accident knocks. Below the rear hatch glass, there's Abarth lettering in dark titanium grey. And of course, of more importance is what you can't see. A relevance here because, of course, weight is everything on what's supposed to be a light, zippy hot hatch. Now, just under 1.4 tonnes doesn't really fit that remit, but it's light for an EV, aided by the sophistication of Fiat's underlying eCMP2 platform. EV design hasn't just changed the engineering fundamentals, it's altered the things you can see too, like this wearable pebble-shaped key fob or these door handles. To operate those, you reach beneath the flush-fitting cover and activate a touch-sensitive pad. And they feature what's called an E-latch, this button on the door panel. You can press and hold it to close the windows and the roof on the convertible model. Let's take a look inside. The Abarth folk clearly have a fetish with the whole scorpion thing, telling us that the barbed claw theme from the exterior has been carried forward into this cabin. Apparently, the straightened sides and upper corners of this sports steering wheel are a direct homage to that arachnid, while its spokes are supposed to follow the lines of that creature's lower arms and torso. You're probably more likely to notice the sports seats that Abarth has installed, each designed to display the same angular contours, which are intended to recreate that venomous animal's powerful fluid form. More importantly, they don't sit you too high in what's intended to be a sporty cockpit. Promotional rhetoric aside, the truth is that it really isn't very much different to the ordinary Fiat model here inside, or at least it won't be if you stick with the standard model, which might be a tad disappointing for anyone seduced by the whole Abarth vibe. So you really have to stretch to this top Turismo spec model, which distracts your attention from the interior's hard, scratchy plastics with copious use of Alcantara on the dashboard and on the wheel with its emotive blue 12 o'clock marker. The seats get Alcantara too, these chairs here featuring integrated headrests and lasered on acid green Scorpion logos, accompanied by blue and green sports stitching. Door sill kick plates and sports pedal covers further lift the Turismo cabin, plus on this fixed top model you get a glass sunroof, though unfortunately it doesn't open. More subtle Abarth differences can be found with branding added to the cockpit's two screens, and this 10.25-inch Uconnect centre monitor adds in a bit more substance with various selectable performance pages. These include what the marque calls technical gauges, largely superfluous, virtual dials for power, battery level and 12-volt battery output. There's a drag race screen where you can record acceleration times. Otherwise though, as you'd expect, all of the display tech is exactly as you'd find in the equivalent Fiat, this central monitor offering navigation, advanced speech recognition, Wi-Fi connectivity and remote smartphone access. Functionality is based around 6 main menu options on the left of the monitor: home, media, comfort, nav, phone and vehicle. Comfort offers ventilation options if you don't want to use the piano key style physical buttons retained beneath the display. Media has Apple CarPlay and Android Auto smartphone mirroring, plus the 7-speaker 320-watt JBL premium audio setup that Abarth supplies as standard. And vehicle connects you into the Uconnect system's various EV pages, covering power flow, charging schedules and charging settings. As for the instrument binnacle layout, well, as usual on an EV, this is fully digital, and here based around a TFT screen 7 inches in size. It offers a digital speed readout with drive mode display at the top, but otherwise there's not as much of an Abarth vibe to it as you might hope for, given that it replaces the emotive rev counter gauge that the 595 and 695 model owners will be familiar with. To the left of the main display sits a battery readout, while to the right is a power and charge graphic. The screen dulls helpfully in different shades of light, but there's a fractional lag to the speedo readout, the sort of thing you'll find with a number of the cockpit features. If you've tried a combustion-powered small Abarth in the past, you'll notice a far more open and spacious feel in this one, partly because of the exterior dimensional increases, which particularly benefit head and shoulder space, and partly because of the empty space between the lower console and the dash where a gear stick would normally be. That's been replaced by P, R, N and D buttons on the lower part of the fascia. The seats are better than those in fossil-fuelled Abarths as well, better positioned in relation to the pedals and to the steering wheel, which, unlike on a 595 or 695, has reach as well as rake adjustment. These chairs still could be more supportive though for longer trips, not helped by the lack of a lumbar adjustment option. As part of this model's switch to the electrical age, interior storage has been reconsidered and here organised using various modular compartments. You'll notice this deep stowage box between the seats, which has USB and 12-volt ports, and a cup holder just behind. It's open as standard, but gains a sliding lid if you stretch to this top Turismo model. You probably won't immediately catch on to the fact that a further cup holder folds out of the front of this unit, or perhaps at the base of this cubby in the centre of the dash can, with Turismo spec, include a wireless charging mat complete with a sketch of the Turin skyline. A further reminder of this car's Mirafiori plant is found in the Made in Torino mat at the bottom of this door pull, which unfortunately isn't glued down and moves around to the touch, so failing to deliver the sense of solidity that moniker's presumably supposed to convey. Talking of irritations, the door pockets are tiny, and legions of possible female owners will share our slight annoyance that the vanity mirror has been fitted to the passenger side sun visor rather than on the one used by the driver. But you get a huge glove box, and that driver's sun visor has a useful ticket flap. What else? Well, it's quite a faff to turn off the sound actuator, should you want to. You'll need to delve into the complicated screen options of the instrument binnacle to do that, though you have to wade through 8 different sub-menus, all of which has to be done when stationary. And that'll be annoying if you want the sound effects for the fun part of your journey, but would rather then turn them off during, say, a motorway stretch. Our other issue is that we're not sure that the right-hand drive conversion here has been completed as effectively as it might have been. Down at your feet, intrusion from the centre compromises the footrest and makes the footwell quite narrow. Not everyone likes the traditionally Italian long arm, short leg driving position either. So try before you buy. The rest of the ergonomics, though, aren't bad at all, and quite a lot of thought has gone into optimising the positioning of the main touch points. The controls for drive mode selection, audio volume, and the electronic handbrake feel naturally located on the leading edge of this lower console box. There are useful screen control buttons on the back of the steering wheel, and there's the novelty of having to open the door with this button. When you do, it shuts again with a proper thunk, a mark of this car's very decent build quality, a legacy perhaps of the fact that this car is built alongside Maserati's Levante SUV at Mirafiori. And all-round visibility, well, that isn't as good as you might hope it would be on a city car size model. The front A-pillars with their neat little integrated speakers are rather chunky, and there's quite a big rear 3/4 blind spot, big enough to ensure that you'll be making plenty of use of the standard rear parking sensors. Right, time to take a look in the rear. Now, you can't have everything in a car this short, but we'd hope that this EV model's 22mm wheelbase increase over its combustion predecessor might have liberated a bit more space in the back. Once you tug on the quite difficult to get to blue pull strap, though, to gain rearward entry, it's immediately obvious as the front seat angles towards the dash that this isn't the case. At the original launch of this design, Fiat told us that all this car's interior spaces had been redesigned to give passengers the feeling of sitting on a romantic bench. Well, we don't think you'd feel in a particularly romantic mood if you were cooped up back here for very long. Even kids will probably only be in any way comfortable if front seat occupants sacrifice a bit of legroom. Adults, meanwhile, have plenty to grouse about apart from legroom, the headrests that dig uncomfortably into your shoulder until you raise them, and more significantly, the fact that your head is likely to be brushing the ceiling due to the fact that the roof arches down towards your forehead just when you don't need it to. There is at least the low centre transmission tunnel that you'd want from an EV, and these side panels have been scalloped out to create more space for your elbows. Finally, let's take a look in the rear. Now, raising the surprisingly heavy tailgate reveals an unsurprisingly tiny boot area, topped off by an equally tiny little parcel shelf. There's only 185 litres of space here. That's the same as the old combustion model, but 15 litres less than is offered by the latest Mini Cooper electric. 3 carry-on cases will go in, or 2 with the convertible version, which has the same capacity but more restricted access. No tie-down points are provided, and it doesn't help that much of the boot space you do get is taken up by this branded bag provided for the Mode 3 charging cable. The extra cost Mode 2 charging cable you'll need to plug into a domestic socket will clutter the boot up even more, as does the bag for the tyre repair kit. None of this stuff can sit under the cargo area base because there isn't any space for anything there. Flattening the 50-50 split rear bench increases luggage capacity to 550 litres. At the time of this test in autumn 2023, pricing for this car was starting from around £34,000. And as with an ordinary Fiat 500e, there are two body styles, with a £3,000 premium to swap this two-door only fixed top version out for the Cabrio model. Either way, Abarth offers two trim levels, standard or the upgraded Turismo version we're trying here. Spring for a Cabrio in Turismo guise, and you'd be looking at needing well over £41,000. For reference, at the time of filming, this model's donor car, the ordinary Fiat 500e, cost from just under £30,500 in 42 kilowatt-hour form, or from just under £33,500 in plusher La Prima spec. As for rivals to this Abarth, well, currently there really aren't many all-electric hot hatches to stack up against this model, but we think likely customers will be considering the second generation Mini Electric, which, as we filmed in comparable Cooper Electric E form, was offering 182 horsepower for £30,000, or in Cooper Electric SE guise, 215 horsepower for £34,500. But is it quite as focused a street rocket as this Abarth? Well, you'll need to decide. It certainly won't sound as good as a 500e. The only other comparable rival we can currently think of is the MG4 X-Power, which offers 201 horsepower, so is quite a lot faster, but at around £36,500, as we filmed, is quite a lot pricier too. Expect more compact EV hot hatch rivals to join this party very soon, including Volkswagen's zippy little ID2 GTI, the Cupra Raval, and the Renault 5-based Alpine A290. If, though, you're smitten with this Abarth, you'll need to know about standard kit, so let's take a look at that now, starting with what you get right across the range. Now, thankfully, you won't have to pay extra or stretch to plush a trim for the things that really make this Abarth an Abarth, like the Abarth sound generator and the 3 driving modes. And the mean exterior look, with its white front and rear bumper inserts and titanium grey mirror caps. Most of the stuff you'd want is standard across the range too. Things like LED headlamps, dark tinted rear windows, rear parking sensors, cruise control, auto headlamps and wipers, and a decent standard of camera safety kit, which we'll brief you on shortly. The 500e also gets an Abarth branded version of the My Fiat app, through which you can remotely interact with your car. Via this app, you can also schedule charging, find a public charger, and check battery status. Inside across the range, there's a 7-inch TFT instrument cluster display with dedicated Abarth graphics, keyless go and automatic zone climate control. Infotainment's taken care of by a 10.25-inch Uconnect touchscreen infotainment system, with integrated navigation and Abarth performance pages, plus wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto smartphone mirroring. The onboard Wi-Fi keeps drivers constantly updated with real-time traffic, parking information and weather reports, while built-in Amazon Alexa allows them to control their smart devices without taking their hands off the wheel. This centre screen's also your access point for the incorporated 7-speaker, 320-watt JBL premium audio setup, which offers virtual centre algorithm and speed-adjusted volume, plus an 8-channel amplifier, 2 tweeters and a boot-mounted subwoofer. Is it worth stretching to this plusher Turismo trim level? Well, most owners probably will. This swaps out the standard model's 17-inch wheels for larger 18-inch diamond-cut titanium grey rims, and inside changes the standard model's matte grey dashboard for one trimmed in Alcantara. With the Turismo, the standard model's straightforward black seats are changed for Alcantara-trimmed sports chairs with integrated headrests and lasered-on acid green Scorpion logos. And the rather ordinary 3-spoke vinyl black steering wheel of the standard model is changed for one stitched in Alcantara and leather. Door sill kick plates and sports pedal covers further lift the Turismo cabin. The fixed top version gets a glass roof as well, and this plusher spec also gets you keyless entry, front parking sensors and heated door mirrors. And inside, heated front seats, a wireless phone charging pad, a reversing camera, an electrochromatic rear view mirror, a heated windscreen wiper blade area and a central armrest with a closed console. Options are few, but you'll probably be spending £600 extra on your choice of paint shade. Select between a palette of fun colours such as antidote white, venom black and adrenaline red, or new for this electric Abarth, poison blue and, as in this case, acid green. You'll need £200 more to get a lead that'll enable you to charge from a 3-pin domestic socket. Right, let's finish with a look at safety equipment. Now, the continuing combustion engined Fiat 500-based Abarth models can get away without offering the latest camera safety features, but this much pricier electric contender can't. So, as well as the usual twin front, side and curtain airbags, plus electronic assistance for braking and stability control, it includes autonomous emergency brake control, which, as usual with these systems, scans the road ahead as you drive, looking for potential accident hazards, and will automatically apply the brakes if required. There's also lane keep assist to keep you in lane on the highway, and traffic sign recognition, which pictures signs as you pass, displaying them on the dash. Attention Assist is a drowsiness detector that will warn you if your reactions suggest drowsiness. To this tally, this top Turismo model adds an auto high or low beam system for the LED headlights and blind spot warning, which alerts you if you're about to pull out when there's a vehicle in your blind spot. Don't expect the driving range figure to quite match the best possible 199-mile figure of the Fiat 500 EV donor car, given the racier electric motor and the weight of all those bodywork add-ons. Actually, this Abarth 500e doesn't get very close to that figure at all, WLTP rated at between 150 and 164 miles between charges. Still, we have at least found that figure to be relatively real-world throughout this test, which isn't always the case with EVs these days. We've been getting 3.8 miles per kilowatt hour in the time we've had this car, against a claim figure of 3.4 miles per kilowatt hour. Anyway, the smiles per mile capability on offer here should make up for the restricted range readings. Plus, the Uconnect infotainment system software can automatically plan the optimal itinerary with intermediate stops for recharging. As with all EVs, your driving style will have a huge impact on the range readings you'll get, as will the roads you use, of course. Highway driving at 81 miles an hour, for instance, will halve the quoted WLTP figure, but at urban speeds, the range can be extended beyond the quoted WLTP reading. The car's brake regen system, only maximised in the Turismo drive mode, will maximise efficiency, and if you use it with smooth acceleration and gentle braking, Abarth reckons you'll be able to reduce energy consumption by 15 to 20%. A détente notch in the throttle pedal travel, which can be rather annoying when you're pressing on, is intended to try and moderate unintended acceleration. It's also well to remember that exterior temperatures, plus strong use of the heating or air conditioning, can vary the potential range quite a lot, by up to 40% depending on the season and the cabin thermal comfort required. Preheating the car when it's still plugged in, which you can do via the provided app, is very effective in improving efficiency. You can monitor your efforts towards frugality via a provided electric vehicle part of the centre screen. This gives you an interactive power flow graphic and a driving history section with graphs that show energy consumption on a current or weekly basis. When you power the car off, there's also a trip summary screen on the instrument display that shows energy consumption and battery charge used. The electric vehicle part of the centre screen also has a schedules section where you can program home battery replenishment and set up AC charging. The charging system and the 42 kilowatt-hour nickel manganese cobalt battery in use here is of course just the same as in the equivalent Fiat. To keep it topped up at home, customers can get an easy wall charging box that offers 3 kilowatt charging and apparently doesn't need to be professionally installed. More usually, you'd upgrade this wall box to allow for more usual 7.4 kilowatt home charging, but for that you will need professional help. That 7.4 kilowatt wall box allows you to fully charge this electric Abarth in just over 6 hours. The car also comes with a Mode 3 cable for AC charging at up to 11 kilowatts, which takes 4 hours and 15 minutes. All the wall boxes your dealer can arrange for you can be controlled remotely with a provided eSolutions charging app. If you want a bit more control over your charging regime, there's an available ePro wall box incorporating built-in RFID technology, which allows you to more easily remotely start charging sessions and regulate charging based on the available energy, preventing blackouts. Of course, it's not always possible to use a wall box or a DC public charger. If you have to plug into a conventional domestic socket, you need 15 hours and 15 minutes for full battery replenishment. What about charging when out and about? Well, the maximum charging speed on offer here is inevitably the same as that of a Fiat 500e, a very modest 85 kilowatts. But given the battery's dinky size, this still means that a DC rapid charger will be able to replenish the car from empty to 80% capacity in 35 minutes and can provide the car with 25 miles of driving range, most owners' daily average, in just 5 minutes. As usual with an Abarth, this car's covered by a 3-year unlimited mileage warranty, and there's 36 months of breakdown cover included as well. Should you have a problem on a journey, you can use the Uconnect infotainment system to contact roadside assistance. The battery has its warranty, which lasts for 8 years or nearly 100,000 miles, whichever comes first. What else might you need to know? Well, you can use the sprawling Fiat dealer network for servicing visits. Intervals are every year or every 12,000 miles, whichever comes first. Garage visits shouldn't cost too much. After all, the Abarth 500e's electric powertrain has no cylinders, fuel and particulate filters, oil and fuel pumps, spark plugs, engine oil or exhaust gas treatment systems. To keep the car up and running at its top performance, you'll only have to replace a few consumable parts such as tyres, brake pads and the cabin air filter. Owners can keep up to date with their car's maintenance schedule via the My Car section of that My Fiat app, which briefs you on the time of your next service and various maintenance issues. As usual with an EV, your benefit in kind tax rating will be a low 2% until 2025 anyway. Until then, you won't have to bother about the London congestion charge or ULEZ charges either. VED road tax is free until 2025 too. Beware though if you're looking at the top Turismo spec convertible model, because if plans go ahead to make EVs over £40,000 liable for the luxury car tax, you might have to pay a hefty VED tax premium in years 2 to 6 of ownership. Insurance might not be as pricey as expected. The Group 23 rating is on a par with a Mini Cooper electric and way better than an MG4 X-Power. This is but the first episode in a brand new Abarth story, one that founder Carlo Abarth could never have dreamed of, and it'll help this fledgling Italian brand that, for the time being anyway, this 500e doesn't face too much competition in the market for small EV hot hatches. That's emboldened the brand to charge plenty for this little battery-powered shopping rocket, which doesn't help its prospects given that direct rivals like the Mini Cooper electric and the MG4 X-Power offer significantly more power along with more interior space and cargo room for much the same kind of outlay. Still, in terms of fun per kilowatt hour, you could argue that there's nothing quite like this car at its price point. We remain unsure whether there's quite enough here to appeal to the true hot hatch enthusiast, but spirited city types and converted gamers should like it a lot. You'll need to enjoy the affected soundtrack to want one, but if you do, you'll probably adore this Abarth model's style, chuckability and cheeky vibe. Pay the extra for this plusher Turismo version and you'll get a very special feeling cabin too. So the best Abarth ever? Well, future faster versions of this car will more clearly challenge for that title, but this one stakes a very creditable claim.